Hey everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Sunday. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Barbara Wiseman. I'm going to be the MC today, and I am the local PMC CERT training officer. And just really want to thank you for coming and joining us on this. I think this is an incredibly important topic for us all. And we have a great opportunity today with Rob Caruth as the general manager of the local water company, briefing us on what to expect up here when an earthquake happens, fire happens, what to expect related to water resources, and how we can be more prepared about that. We also have some other speakers who are going to be talking about, you know, tips on types of supplies to get, how much water to store, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's going to be a very informative talk. The agenda that we put out is completely wrong. We changed everything 5 minutes before we started, right? So just on the timing, what we decided to do is Rob's talk is not a full hour long, but what we're going to do is have Rob talk and then the other three speakers talk, and then we're going to do Q&A, right? So we don't want to do questions in the middle of the talks right now. That'll just get kind of extended out too long, and this will be an efficient way to do it and make sure that because some of the questions that you might be asking Rob, for example, are already planned to be answered in one of the next speaker's talks. So at the end, if you still have questions, which I'm sure you will, then we'll have all the speakers come up and you can address their questions to them. Make sense? Everybody? Okay, great. So also we're going to have a raffle at the end. And Nico is going to help me pick the winners. We'll have 12 winners, and we've got 12 very nice disaster supply prizes over there on the table to choose from. All right. Let's see. Good. Well, let's just jump right into this. Rob, do you want to come up? Great. I'm just going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, I'm Rob Caruth, General Manager for the water company here in town, Milkshire Mutual Water Company, your one and only water supply. I'm not going to admit to be an expert on incident command or emergency. Bring it up a little bit. A little better? No? Sorry, not going up any higher. How about now? We're going to have to speak over here. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, again, I'm not an expert on incident command, but being that we have to be prepared for any kind of emergency to water company, we do take classes on that, and we are prepared to deal with what we need to do to make sure that you guys have water and that your taps are running. But there's going to be a circumstance where you might end up being on your own, and that's the scary part, is that there could be a really large earthquake that could affect the water company's supply. There could be a fire, there could be a snowstorm. So these are all the things we want to kind of look at and talk about today, is how you can be prepared if for some reason we can't get you water, and that is a possibility. You know, generally speaking, you count on us to have running water all the time, and in normal circumstances, that's true. We're constantly on top of it, 24/7, making sure that you have water in your tap. Some of the things that are important to think about here, and I think you guys are all aware, and I know those on the CERT team are aware, that we're in this mountain community. We have risks like wildfires, winter storms, power outages, and very limited access. So, you know, we have basically two ways out of here, but it's just, you know, a corridor which can get clogged up pretty quick. Just want to talk a little bit about the system that we have here. If you're not aware, is how we get water. We get water from the ground. So groundwater, to get it out of the ground, we need electricity. So we pump the water out, it's treated, and then it goes into the storage tanks, which are throughout the community. And you guys are well aware of the terrain here. So we're pumping it up, and it's coming back down, pumping up from one tank to another. We have about, sorry, let me get back on the mic, 2.8 million gallons at one time available in the reservoirs. So we have 9 large reservoir tanks holding that capacity, and that's what's feeding your home and the hydrants. There's about 33 miles of pipe throughout all the roadways here. And of course we have the large reservoir tanks. This is C tank. It was just renovated last year. This holds about 500,000 gallons at one given time. So this is what a large reservoir tank looks like. And then you guys probably all noticed the new well that we drilled over here. We're just waiting for power right now from Edison, and that one will be up and running, and we'll be able to use that for fire suppression and residential use. So currently we have 7 active wells, 2 standby wells, and the new well. We have booster pump stations. So after it leaves the well, it goes to the treatment plant. From the treatment plant, it pumps up. It uses booster pumps, again, uses electricity, right, to get up to the next tank, to the next tank, to the next tank, to eventually, if anybody's familiar with the top of Linden where the cell tower is at for Verizon, we have a tank up there. Then it starts coming back down. When it comes back down, it starts gaining pressure. So we have 16 pressure reducing stations. So gravity feed is great. We don't need electricity once it's up there. So once we have the water in the reservoirs, then most of you are on gravity fed water. Now you're in different parts of the community, so your pressure is all different because we're all, again, we're on terrain. You might have 65, you might have 120, you might have 45, you might have 95s. Around town in the commercial center, we have about 120 psi. So it depends on where you're at. So the hydrants, we have 235 of those throughout the town. You should have one near your home. If not, your insurance probably doesn't like you. So if we have a power outage like we did in that Snowmageddon and we can't get electricity for a few days, if everybody's conserving, we could go maybe 6 days without needing power. But generally speaking, probably more like 4 days if we're doing normal usage. If I can get the word out to everybody to conserve, and we're conserving water, we can go further, right? And it depends on how many people are in town. So if it's Lilac Festival, we might have, I don't know, 4,000 to 6,000 people in town. It's hard to say. I would say that we're generally around 2,000, maybe 2,500 max population here. It's really hard for me to tell. So if we're conserving and we're just using what we need, then we can last for quite a while. We have, if you look in this photo right here, generators at the sites that need power all the time. So some of you live a little bit above one of our tanks, and so we got to pump it up to you. If you live at the top of Simons, top of Tyrol, let's see, down off of Ferdwood or top of Ironwood, if I don't have power, you don't have water. That's on a continuous basis. So those particular sites have permanent generators. The fuel level in those will last 36 hours. We have a way to refill those as long as we can get fuel somewhere. We can transfer that with our flatbed truck. So if we can go down to Midway and get fuel, if we can get fuel through the agreement that we have with the clubhouse, which we have, then we're able to keep those generators running. So again, kind of going back, if we run out of power, that's kind of going to be one of the most difficult situations for water because we need to pump. Now, if there's a fire on top of that and everyone's trying to use their hoses and they're trying to put out fires, then we're going to lose water faster. So what happens when we have that big earthquake, fire, power outage? We have that 3 strikes. So then you're going to have water at your house for you. And that's when the CERT team is going to come in and talk to you guys a little more about that. But what do you need to have? Because I only have a few of these generators that I can leapfrog from the other sites, and we can keep it going, and we will, assuming I can get into work, right? So if we have that big earthquake, it's going to be hard for everybody to get around. So what do you have on hand at your house is what you're going to be thinking. Do I have enough water to survive? If I've been rotating my water every 6 months, is it fresh? Is it clean? And so those are the things you're going to want to think about. If because of the fault lines that we have, it's not just a San Andreas fault. There's a multitude of faults that I've learned through here, and there's fault lines all through what it seems like just the golf course right here. There's one that runs through Askin, so there's a good chance that pipes could be broken, that we're hemorrhaging water. We're trying to isolate those valves. So if we're isolating those valves and we're trying to keep the water in those tanks, that could mean that I'm shutting water off to a certain section of town or to your house. And so you want to be prepared to have what you need to last, probably 7 days up here. Generally speaking, if you're somewhere else, maybe 4 days. But because we're so isolated, we talked about helicopter drops. I don't see that happening. When we did the town hall meeting at Choo Petty, the fire department said, we're going to get the road open for sure, but I don't know how long that's going to take. And so you want to know, how can I survive 4, 5, 6, 7 days up here? Well, you're going to need water, right? You could probably live without power. You can go without food for a while, but you're going to want to have water for sure. So the hydrants, they flow 5 to 1,500 gallons per minute, depending on what area they're in. If you're down in the commercial area, 120 PSI, 10-inch line, it's probably pumping 2,000 gallons a minute if the fire department was drawing off that. So that's not going to last very long if they're fighting fires, and I don't have power to pump it up, right? So just, even though we have 2.8 million gallons in the reservoirs at one given time, I don't know if it's going to be severed to your house or severed to your house. So some of you may have water on one part of town and some of you may not. And we're going to do our best to try to get everybody, water from one side of town to the other. We have a way to transport water through a portable tank to get it to one side of the town. But again, we're going to do our best, but if we can't get water to your house, make sure you have supplies at your house. This is what it looked like. I don't know, was this when was Snowmageddon, as we called it? Was like 4 winters ago? So this is what the scene looked like. We tried to plow down, if you guys are familiar with the Greenbelt area and the trails in that area, Snowflake Trail, I think it's called. So we have a gate at the highway, and then we have a gate on Freeman, and we tried to come down with our dump truck right here, and we racing down there to get it open so we can get a generator down to the bottom of that tank because we hadn't had power for a few days. And there was a tree that fell in the roadway, in the path. So we stopped, we got stuck. We couldn't get down there. So we really wanted to get power to the first tank in series, which was C-Tank. So we were able to pump water from the wells with the generators. We were able to pump water from the treatment plant, but we needed to get the water from this tank up to the next tank, right? And so we needed power there. And we waited and we waited. And I finally got a generator in there, and they come rolling in with the Arctic Cat, and Edison powered it up as soon as I almost connected that last wire. This was after 3 days of no power. We had about 10 feet left in the tank, which, is still a bit of water, but we were stressing out a little bit. So they did come through. The county helped out. They had a loader. They plowed right through from the bottom of the highway, and they made a path for us all the way. So people were working together, just on the ground level. We were just communicating with each other, going from truck to truck, just talking to whoever we could, flagging people down. I flagged down every Edison person I could to try to get power. So eventually it came through. I was told it wasn't deemed an emergency. Was that true? It wasn't I don't think the state actually deemed it an emergency, so there was nobody coming in really other than search and rescue and the locals, from what I remember. They did after the fact. Yeah. So we're able to monitor all the levels, even on our phones right now. I can get in and look at what we call SCADA or telemetry. We're able to remote log in and see what's going on. We're able to detect if we have water loss in certain tanks. So again, we're going to be on top of it, trying to make sure that everything's going in the right direction with regard to keeping the tanks full, but we still have limited access. We still have limitations on how much fuel may be available, right, for the backup generators. So we have Again, that the locations that we call hydronomadic, where you have to have power all the time, we have permanent generators, and then we can play leapfrog with some other generators. And actually, some of the tanks are solar power, so might have to get up there and clean off the snow. So what if you don't have water at your house? We were talking about that. What if you ran out of your supply? What if it goes longer? There are some areas around town that continuously have water flowing. One of the areas where all the water seems to merge together is San Emigio. So if you guys are familiar with the creek, as far as I know, it's always running. I've never been down there and measured it when it wasn't running. We measure these creeks every month. And San Emigio is pretty much all the water from the mountains. So all our groundwater is coming from the snow above us, and it sinks in, and we get the water that's, you know, down into the ground. But the subsurface water and the surface water all flows down kind of this way, if you will. And so you don't got much flow happening in these upper ponds, but that lower pond's constantly got water coming in and going out. That eventually even goes down to San Emigio. The water coming top of Banff. If you've been to the waterfall at the top of Woodland, if you've seen the water flowing on Azalea, all that water eventually makes it down to San Emigio. So if you're looking for running water, not stagnant water, that would be the spot. So this was maybe a month and a half ago. I took some photos. In person, it actually looks bigger than that, but the water is flowing down there. So it is a possible source of water that may need less treatment. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't treat it or, you know, put some iodine, chlorine, or put a filter on it, but the stagnant water in the pond's probably not going to be your source, especially not these first two, because there's nothing flowing in and out. The lower pond is continuously, I don't know, it's got to be at least 15 gallons a minute coming in from the diversion box in the green belt. So you have water constantly going in and out of that. So that one is less stagnant than the other. So again, we're going to protect our reservoirs. We're going to isolate all the broken pipes, restore the wells and pumps, and maintain safe drinking water as best as we can. We have 9 people employed at the water company, and so we're going to be leaning on the CERT team to help us with communication, to find out what the needs are for the community and for them to know what our needs are for the agencies, you know, outside our area. If there's communication that they can do for us via radio, we're working together to get all our radios to jive, to get all the stations on there, that make sure that I have everybody's stations, that I have PMC Patrol's frequency on there, the CERT team and everything. Pretty much we do, but every now and then something gets changed and we need to upgrade it. But communication is going to be key during an emergency situation, and we just need to make sure we have all those numbers that we get out to the emergency, the Office of Emergency Services is going to be one of the key numbers that, like for me, if I can call them, they say they have an Edison rep on hand. Like I didn't know who to call. We were calling Edison, you can't get through to Edison. So you have to call, you can't really call Edison and say, hey, I need help. You need to call somebody else that can get in above them, or really the best thing was just find one of the troublemen and say, hey, come help me. You know, at that point, it was really nobody to call. It's just like a, you know, going around and around with an 800 number. So communication is going to be key. If you can have at least 7 days of drinking water on hand, rotate it. I suggest every 6 months. Some people say you can add something in there to keep it fresh. We try to do that with our eye wash stations, and it's still kind of iffy. I'd say dump it out and rotate it. I know it's a waste of water, but that's my preference. Any medical needs, and again, conserve water during that time if you can. That'll help us out. So if there's an emergency, just remember that's a time to conserve water, not use it in abundance. So some of the things to think about, you know, again, storing the water. I know there's someone out here that's got some tanks for sale, so you guys can look at those. I think the 55-gallon drums are a little excessive, and they're hard to rotate. For me, like I've had those 55-gallon drums. I know we had them across over there in Glacier, and they were more of a headache than anything to have them in the trailer, I think. Probably have a bunch of 5-gallon, or we call them carboys. Those are easier to maintain. You can pick them up, dump them out. Like I would have multiple 5-gallon ones. Even for me, I don't like lifting up 15, 20, 55, and then you're gonna have to try to use a pump to get it out. And then how do you clean it? The inside of those tanks. And so it's gonna be easier just to dump out and put a little chlorine in there, mix it in, and re-clean something that's smaller. One of the things we talked about is knowing where your valves are at your house. And so even though we don't like you to get into the meter boxes and turn the meter off, you should have a house valve. Now, in an emergency situation, if you got to turn your meter off, I mean, it's an emergency situation. But you can go out to your meter and you can look at it and see if there's water running. Just like your propane. If we had an earthquake or a fire, you're going to want to go turn that off, right? Well, same with water. Pipes could move. You could be hemorrhaging water and not know. So if you have time, you might want to go out and look at the meter, know where your meter box is at. It's usually a concrete box between you and your neighbor, one of your neighbors, usually shared. And I know they're going to show some photos of that later. So know where your shut-off valves are at. Make sure you have all the emergency supplies like flashlights, batteries. A radio is going to be key for us, and I know they're working on some other systems to help with off-the-grid text messaging for the community, which is going to be beneficial as well. And just be prepared. If there's a boil notice, follow that boil notice, because that means we've been contaminated. That means something's happened where we had a leak or a big break or something in the tanks where something could have got into it. So if you hear boil notice, make sure you boil the water. And just stay informed. Again, communication is going to be the key for that. There was some handouts that went out that have this information on there. I think they're over there. So if you want to grab some of those, kind of telling you what you should have on hand. Other than that, I don't think you're going to do that later. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and let the next speaker come up. Is it Edram? Right there. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you very much, Rob. So thank you again, Rob. When Rob made this presentation to us at the CERT meeting, we took on the responsibility to take a look at this condition and preparedness and response perspective. So, I mean, again, this is not to say this is what we predict to happen, but this is just an exercise in planning and trying to understand what we're preparing for. One of the things to note is the road blockage. I mean, the Mil Potrero is crisscrossed with quite a few of those fault lines and may be vulnerable to closures in multiple places. And how soon they're going to be opening is going to be questionable. I mean, like, we don't know. So what does that mean? That means there's going to be limited medical response. There's going to be limited supplies coming in. There's going to be limited things to buy at the store. There's going to be limited opportunities to leave the place. So this is actually a crucial point to understand. In addition to that, we have water, like we have plenty of water in the aquifer, as far as we know, but access to it is going to be a challenge. From what I understand, we pump the water in the valley and pump it all the way up onto the mountain, and it trickles down to all of the houses. So even if you're sitting on top of a big water aquifer, you may not have access to it. Like you may not have electricity to pump it out and above, and even if you do, maybe in the case of an earthquake, those lines can be broken and it may have to be shut down. Plus, you're also looking at an increased demand. Some earthquakes are followed by small fires that require to be responded to by the fire department. They have priority in accessing the water. So those like increased demand, reduced electricity, distribution lines vulnerable. I mean, 30 miles of concrete lines, an earthquake don't go well together. Repairs and response, those could be delayed. They may not be the priority. Like even if people mean to respond to us, help us from outside services, they may need more help themselves, right? And also this idea of preparation. It is not really just about self-preservation. It's also about community responsibility. Because every house that is prepared is actually a reduced strain on the emergency response. So let's look at like in two categories. Like one of them is response, the other one is preparedness. Okay. In the response, like you will be responding, let's say, to a potential earthquake. I mean, the first thing, drop, cover, hold. Everybody knows that, and expect aftershocks, obviously. And a lot of people will try to reach 911. It's a good thing to do because at least we need to have some sort of a record of what's going on so that they can mitigate the response. Also try to reach out to RSN in case you can't get to 911. That's another reason we recommend having a radio. And also to your neighbors. Obviously, try to attend to life-threatening emergencies. And as you're trying to go to an open, safe area, try to keep in mind things may have changed. Like the staircase you usually take to go down may not be there. Or the door you're used to opening might be crooked and may not be sliding anymore. Or there may be glass on the floor that you can, in the middle of the night, maybe you're running with barefoot. So try to keep those possibilities in mind. But let's say you're out and you're out in the open, your neighbors are out too. Everybody okay? The three utilities, propane, electrical, and water, are all accessible from outside your house. If you smell gas, if you smell propane, like keep in mind that propane is heavier than air and it sinks down. If you smell propane, turn off your tank. I'll show in more pictures on how to do that. There's actually two valves, but one of them is easier to access, the one on the tank. If there are small fires that you can attend to with an extinguisher, obviously have an extinguisher, know how to use it. Even practice, don't be scared. Try to attend those without risking yourself, without getting in more danger. I mean, the other thing is like a lot of the injuries can also happen after the earthquake. Like we're usually scared of, oh, the shaking is over. And then what happens afterwards can also cause injuries as well. Electrical. There might be fallen live wires around the neighborhood. There might be some appliances that are risky in your household too. So turning off the power supply can also be useful. Needed. And finally, water. There's when you know where your water meter is, if you haven't gone out just having some water running in the sink or in the bathtub, when you go out and open your meter box, there's a small flower, blue flower usually, right, Rob? If it's rotating, that means you have a leak. And yeah, it might be damaging your house further, but more importantly, it may actually be reducing the water that we have limited amounts of, right? So you can always turn your water off, not at the meter. Every house has a valve, easier to use valve. You can turn the water off and you can turn it back on when you need it, even if you have a leak. If you need water, turn it on, use it a little bit, turn it back off. Finally, some heaters have some heaters have tanks in them, and they are usually 35, 40 gallons of heaters. And hopefully you secured the heaters because they are like heavy and they shake, and in case of an earthquake, they can really move out. So check those braces on the water heaters, and if it's still there, and if you can turn it off on the top, isolate it, and use the draining area to use that 40 gallons of water, right, in the coming days. And also, if you have a bathtub, if you can lock it, fill it up, you can use that for sanitation, right? So those are the response part. Like this is what a propane tank shut-off valve looks like on the top. Some companies don't want you to turn off, like you can turn it off, but they want you to, if you turn it back on, they want to be there in case there's a leak. I'll leave that to your judgment. Maybe call them and say like if there's a valve and if there's a leak, I would turn it off. I wouldn't actually just say, oh my God, no. a lot of the electrical panels have this main shut off right there at the very top. When turning it back on, I would turn all of the small ones off and turn the main one on and slowly turn one by one. This is what our water meters mostly look like. And the valve is at the bottom, but don't use that one because they might be old and they may need attention. There's another valve at your house. It looks like this. That's the one that's easier to shut off and isolate your house. Inside the water meter, the blue little flower is there. If there is a leak, it's going to show by rotating if everything is turned off, right? And this is the drain valve of a water heater that you can actually get water out of your water heater in case you need. So that's the response part. There's also the preparedness part, and this is something you can do today, I believe, like beginning with choosing a water container outside. And you can think of water preparedness in 3 steps. One of them is storing, moving, and treating the water. How much is always a question. The FEMA recommends 1 gallon per person per day. I find this to be very conservative. I mean, I lived off-grid with my family for about a year, and we use a lot more than that. So you may actually want to double that, or maybe even triple, in case you want to be comfortable. And yes, the expectation, like 7 days, 14 days, you know, like just depends on what you want to do once the road opens or once things are repaired. Like if you want to stay here or you want to go. Choosing food-grade containers with easy filling, draining, and cleaning, like Rob mentioned as well. That's an important point. Some of the tanks that are being sold are called open top. You can actually remove the entire top, those 55. If you want to have a 55-gallon one, some of the ones that are available have a removable top completely. It's not a small opening. So you can actually reach out and clean. Depends really on the tank itself. And again, like one giant tank is vulnerable. You may not be able to access to it. You may find out that it was leaking and there's no more water in it. So multiple, like in addition to a big one, I would have smaller ones as well. This also comes in handy because your water source, the available water source to refill them may not be very easily accessible. Like it might be a natural source. It might be 3 neighbors up the road. You may have to actually carry water tanks and get your water back to your base, your house. Also, moving the water in and out of the container is a question. Like there are manual pumps, siphons, and gravity-fed spigots. We will get to those later. If you have a big, large container, when you fill it, you can't move it anymore. So making sure that you can put a pot under the lower spigot, maybe raising it up and then filling it. And also in terms of storage, mark the date you filled the water, like to have an idea of when it was last replenished. For treatment, like Rob said, 6 to 12 months is what people expect the untreated water to last, that comes out of your tap. This can be prolonged using stabilizer additives. The package says 5 years on them if you use the right dosage. I mean, contamination, heat, sunlight, algae, biofilm growth will reduce shelf life. Like you want to keep them in a cool, shaded place. And obviously, naturally sourced water needs to be treated using sterilizers, filters, or boiling. We'll show you some filter options as well. The advice for using bleach is 8 drops per gallon. And like you stir and wait. If the water is obviously visibly dirty, you can go higher on that. So we made some preliminary research before you go to Amazon and doing searches on what to buy. There are mostly, in the quantities that you'll need, there are mostly 4 options out there. The bladders, the drums, the water bricks, the commercial jugs. Bladders are usually the cheapest option, but they are used by farmers, and they're not advised to be food safe. They are made of PVC. Even though it looks very attractive, I would only use that for sanitation purposes. It might smell like PVC. Drums are the 55-gallon drums. They are the next cheapest option. The numbers below, I made a brief calculation about how many dollars per gallon you're spending. A new unused food grade one comes to about 2.7. Like they sell about 110, 120, and then you add tax and then shipping, and it comes to 150. Abe was his name, right? There's a guy who sells used food grade containers. He seems to know where the sources are from, and I bought mine from him a couple of weeks ago. He sells them 1/3 of that price. I think it's a reasonable option. I mean, we're not endorsing or affiliated with anybody, any of the products that we're talking about. Just we're trying to make it available for everyone to easily obtain one. Water bricks are advantages because in case you need to carry them, they're both like, they can stack into a barrel size, but they can be taken out and refilled and all that, but they're quite expensive. Obviously, there's also the commercial jugs available, 5 gallons. Like I'm imagining if you want to have a 10, 11 of them and rotate them each time you get a new one, maybe that can be your solution too. There are plastic recommendations that, I mean, any HDPE is going to be food safe. The PET bottles, like PET bottles, polyethylene tetra something, those are not advised for reusing again and again. But like if you see deterioration, I would rotate those faster. Here are some pumps. Like the one on the very left, you can actually pump a couple of times and it starts siphoning. The one on the middle is actually a commercially available one that fits onto those jugs. There are siphon, like any food plastic siphon hose is going to work to siphon it out. And this one actually has a little marble at the tip. You can shake it instead of like sucking on the pipe. You can shake it a number of times and it will start siphoning it out. The one on the very right, that fits into those drums, the openings on those drums. Here are some filters. Again, these are either suction or gravity-fed filters. You don't want to rely on something with electricity, I think. Katadyn, Berkey, Sawyer. Sawyer is one that you can attach to a drinking bottle and treat only the water you're drinking as you're drinking it. Berkey is a gravity-fed one. The difference between sterilizers and stabilizers is necessary to understand. Sterilizers are sterilizing dirty water. Stabilizers are making them last longer in the container you have. These products, by the way, there's a QR code with like, I'll show it to you later. Like, you don't have to take notes now. You can actually, like, we have them on a separate document. Usage of bleach, try to use an unscented one, unless you want your water to smell like lavender. Like the 8 drops per gallon, as I was saying earlier. This is for the people watching on YouTube who can't obtain the stuff that we're giving out. Here is the document. It's a Google document open to public. You can scan it and access, and this is in development. Like, still we're adding, like, people who are using these products can add more products or more options, and reach out to us if you want, if you think something is missing. So this is the number of the company who delivers here and is cheap. Like, again, we're not affiliated. It's an easy option. So here are some notes about the community preparedness and response. Like I said, firefighters need water. And how you can be effective in this is, if there are leaks in your neighborhood, get on that RSN radio and tell us. And we can report to the water company. And they can go and shut down the necessary tank to save water for the fire department to use if they're addressing a house, right? Or a propane tank that's coming. in emergency water distribution, like there may be some situations where like some injured people, some elderly people, like we can help by getting some water to people and deciding on some water distribution sites and regulations and things like that. These are things to think about for the emergency preparedness perspective. Some of those natural sources Rob mentioned, we will have them mapped out, and we'll like, I think we need to think about, like you mentioned it in the CERT meeting, Rob, how, like, can we get to them with cars, right? Like, how, like in case we need to utilize those. That's another consideration. Obviously, another usage of the RSN network would be the boil water advisory. Like if the water department says, hey, you may have water coming down your tap, but it's vulnerable, like there was a leak, so you have to boil your water. That information will probably go out through the RSN network. I mean, of course, water shortage always means sanitation challenges. So we have prepared earlier shelter-in-place box recommendations. There are recommendations on that kit of what you can use instead of having a shower, instead of a toilet, instead of. So I advise like you use those as well. The brochures and the kits, and prepare yourself a box. And lastly, RSN, CERT, and EPC. These are three functions that I feel very privileged to live in a community that has these. Some don't. The radio safety network is amazing, and like James will talk about more on that end. CERT, please, if you're interested in any of this, reach out to us in one way or the other. We want to meet you. Like, we want to actually know you in person. If you think you'll be there when it matters, I think we should meet earlier. And then the Emergency Preparedness Committee. So, Mark, do you want to talk a bit about CERT?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Greco. I'm on the CERT team, and I'm going to speak to you very briefly about sort of what CERT is, what you can expect from us, and sort of ask you maybe to think about joining CERT. But I first want to thank everyone for being here. We know that you probably are some of the most dedicated people up here in terms of preparing and getting ready. And this is a big part of, as Erdem pointed out, this is a big part of what we need from you, is to be prepared ahead of time so that when it happens, you're not one of the people that are putting a burden on the system. Or as I was taught when I learned how to be a CERT member, don't be a victim. And so I mentioned that on the winter event, and I'm going to keep mentioning that because that's a core tenet for CERT. Let's not be a victim. And so part of that is preparing ahead of time. So for those of you that don't know, CERT is the Community Emergency Response Team, CERT. It is a FEMA program that in our case is administered by Kern County Fire Department. So we're affiliated with the fire department at a higher level, not necessarily the Station 58 guys, but at a higher level. And part of what we have identified in this community is that we don't have public works here. We have a water company, we have the POA, and we have Station 58. We don't have sheriff, we don't have search and rescue located here. So when we're stuck, who's gonna help you? Who here thinks it's gonna be patrol? It's not gonna be patrol. Rob talked about what the water company is gonna be doing. They're gonna be very busy doing what they need to do. Patrol is going to be busy, and maintenance from the POA is going to be very busy trying to clear roads and do things. But they're not going to pull you out of buildings. They're not going to address your medical needs. And if we're cut off, that's going to be us. That's going to be CERT. And we have, just to give you a brief overview, we have training in fire suppression and fire safety, light search and rescue, which means finding you in those buildings, if you're stuck in your room after an earthquake, if somebody can't find you, we'll go out and look for you a little bit. We only can do what we can do. And the reality is, if you're stuck inside of a building, we're not going to be a victim, and we're not going to go inside the building. So some of that is the training that we do, which includes first aid, CPR, disaster medical operations, emergency radio communications, and the incident command system. So here in town, when there's an emergency, our CERT team is trained in practice, and we continue to train in practice on getting together and organizing an incident command structure. What that means is we come together in an organized way to find out what is happening on the mountain, send help to who needs it, and organizing information as it comes in and getting that information off the mountain to people who need it. So that includes the fire department if 911 is down. That includes county roads if the roads are down. That includes the, Rob mentioned the Office of Emergency Services and the Emergency Operations Center. We are the contact, the main contact between this community and the Emergency Operations Center if it gets stood up. And so our responsibility as members of this community, all volunteers, is to figure out where we're at in terms of the emergency needs, convey that off the mountain, and get help as soon as possible. If any of that sounds interesting to you, we would love to have you join our ranks, whether that is as a CERT member with the training that I talked about, or if you just think that on the day of an earthquake or in a fire or an evacuation, if you think you will help, we want to know who you are, and we want you to know who we are so that you know where to go. The CERT building is on this slide here. You can see the CERT building is that building that we're standing in front of, that's next to the fire department. If you think you want to help in an emergency and you're not going to join CERT, if you sign up at our table, we'll contact you during an emergency, or we'll be in contact with you just to have a discussion about ways in which you can help. And we're calling these people the Ready. So you here are part of the Ready whether you realize it or not. You want to be the Ready, and we want to help you get a little bit more ready, which is why we put this event on today. But if you want to get that higher level of training, if you want to know how to do some of those things, if you want to get one of these radios, which is a radio that we use to communicate amongst ourselves during an emergency and to communicate off the mountain and to do other things, please join CERT and be a responder for this community. Again, sign up over at the table right on the right here, and we'll let you know how you can get this training and how to join. Finally, we know that you're out there. You're a nurse, a doctor, a construction worker. You are something, you have some skills, and maybe you don't want to get more training. But when that emergency comes, you are very important to us in the community. Maybe you guys don't know this, but the EP committee has paid for a substantial cache of medical supplies here. And CERT is the one who maintains that supply and who will be using it. But if you're a nurse and you have that training, we are the people that you want to contact in terms of, like, if you want to help your community, come get with us. So we would like to get your name ahead of time and find out who you are so you can find out how you can help us. We're not going to ask a lot from you, but we do want to know who you are so that when the day comes, we can do things in an organized way. Along those lines, I want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that in about a month, we are doing an evacuation drill up here. One of the big things that people have question marks about is, in a fire, what's going to happen? Where do you go? What do you do? Who's going to do what? The general manager of the POA has had those questions, and he's working through that with CERT in terms of what is everyone going to do? How are we going to communicate that information to the community? That is another example of what CERT is doing. If you would like to be part of that exercise, just maybe as a volunteer to pretend to help people who might need transportation off the mountain, if you want to see what CERT does in that exercise, if you want to be sort of a play actor of somebody who might need help being moved out of their house, please let us know. Again, sign up at the table, let us know who you are, and help us put on this evacuation drill. We will use this information to really fine tune how our community responds to these types of emergencies. And your help and participation is a big part of that. Finally, James Douglas is going to come up and talk about the radio safety net in a minute. But one of the things that we do at CERT is we work with the radio safety net to get information from the community and then relay that relay that information off the mountain to those who might need it. And also to use that information for our own search and rescue or medical teams or anything else that needs to be done. So we really want to encourage people to pick up a radio if you don't have one, to learn how to use it if you haven't already used it, and to sort of ramp up your preparedness that way. And with that, I'll have James Douglas come up and talk about the radio safety net.
The right slide here. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'll try to keep this distance. This is about the right distance for a radio, coincidentally. Hi. For those that I have not yet met, my name is James Douglas. I'm a radio enthusiast up here, and although I happen to be wearing the Ham Club shirt right now, I've got a CERT shirt under it, too. I'm also a member of CERT and a variety of other emergency response groups up here. But right now, I'd like to talk about something that is, I think, really special and worth noting here about what we have in Pine Mountain Club. So what I'd like to talk about right now is what we call the EP Radio Safety Net, which is a backup communications program for Pine Mountain Club. Now, to be clear, this is not a replacement for cell phones, for Facebook, for the internet. But for anybody who was here during the snowstorm of February of 2023, affectionately called Snowmageddon, those things can all go away. There are parts of the mountain that can and will lose power in a major snowstorm. The cell tower has a limited amount of fuel for its backup generator, and that can be exhausted. And if someone can't get up there to literally refill a fuel tank, which I might remind you, that tower is on the top of a mountain, so I don't know about you, but I don't feel capable of hauling a whole lot of fuel up there. With all of those resources, they can all fail. And so we here in PMC, we have something that a lot of other communities do not, which is a backup form of communications that allows for community members to get in touch with other community members by two-way radio. So this is a program of the EP Committee, and thank you very much for the EP Committee and for the PMCPOA for sponsoring it. This program we've tried to make this as inexpensive and off-grid as possible so that if your radio turns on, you should be able to talk with someone. And this is a way, as Mark mentioned and as Rob mentioned, this is a way for us to be able to collect information from across a very large area, all of Pine Mountain Club, very quickly. With the growing membership in this community, we can quickly identify issues with the water and get that information to the water company as quickly as possible. If there are any major issues across PMC, we can get that information off the mountain even when cell phones are down, the internet is down, when nothing else is working. We can use radio technology like this, simple, reliable radios, to be able to communicate with folks in Bakersfield. I'm not literally wearing a hat for the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, but I have one over there. So one of my many hats, literally, is that I'm the Assistant Emergency Coordinator for the Fraser Mountain Communities for the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. So this GMRS-based radio program, this is how we collect information, and over amateur radio, that is how we officially talk with the fire department through the Office of Emergency Services. So that is how we can communicate off the mountain if something were to happen and we have another snowmageddon and no one is able to get a hold of anybody because everything fails all at once. To be clear, that this is not a silver bullet. There are limitations to this program, but if you have difficulty with reception at your house, for example, we would like to help identify and fix those issues as much as possible. Getting started in the program is very simple. You need a compatible radio, which we have a couple left over here. We're waiting on a supply of additional radios from our supplier. The ones we do have over here are just $20, and we'll be selling them here after the town hall. And if you would like to transmit on the radio, not just receive information on the radio, you'll need a license from the FCC, which is just a matter of filling out some forms online, and there's a $35 fee. The license covers you and your entire immediate family, your kids, your parents, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles. The definition is very generous, and it's valid for 10 years for just $35. There's no test. This is not amateur radio. There are over 350 members of this program already here in PMC. That's about 15% of the membership, and that's undercounting. That's really impressive. The last time I looked, this is about 9 months ago, we have more GMRS licenses than 99% of the zip codes in the United States. So this program has really been taking off and is one of the many reasons why if something big does happen here and we have another major disaster or another snowmageddon, we will be far better prepared this time. And I invite those of you who are not yet a part of the RSN, the Radio Safety Net, to come over to our table over here and talk with us about it. Or if you have any other questions or would like to purchase one of the handful of remaining radios that we have. One other thing I'll mention about the sale of radios is we also, under normal conditions, have external USB-C batteries. Radios and batteries are back-ordered, like I said, but they're also normally available through the business office here at the POA. And thank you very much to the POA for allowing us to sell radios through the front desk. If you have any questions about reception or expected reception at your house, we do have a map of the expected coverage of our repeater here. If you would like to identify your specific house on this map, I've got an interactive one over there on a computer, so you can zoom in specifically on your house. I think that's it, but maybe we're going on to questions now, MC? Thank you very much.
That was informative, wasn't it? Yeah, yes, really, really good data, really good information. You know what I'd like to do is have, does anybody have a question? If so, just raise your hand, just so I have an idea of, yeah? Okay, good. So can the three other speakers, four speakers, sorry, come up to the front? And then we'll just take a question at a time depending on who that question is for. And you guys probably, well, we can just do this. We can, whoever the question's for, you can take this. Okay, good. All right. Great. Who had a question here? Yes. Andre with 32 questions. Good. So what's the high point in the entire community you can drive to? I'll repeat these so that everybody can hear. So,
do I need the microphone?
Yeah,
Okay.
stand there, Jim.
You're talking about the high point for where the water's at, or elevation-wise? So as far as tanks, top of Linden, which is where we talked about where the cell tower was at, where there's going to be limited road access if there's snow there. So when you get to the top of Linden, there's a gate, and there's limited access unless you're in utility or have permission to get up there. There is a tank at the top of that near the tower, and it's going to be very difficult to get to that location again if there's snow.
I feel like maybe you're asking natural source? Are you referring to natural source or supply tanks?
If you're talking about just water running, that would be, there's at the top of Azalea, or if you guys are familiar with the waterfall at the top of Woodland, that's kind of your high point. If I want to give away all my secrets, if you go If you go to the top of Camp Condor, if you know where that's out, Sierra Nestro, where the school's out, where the snow gate. So if you go through that camp where it has a locked gate and it's abandoned, believe it or not, there's a water source up there as well. You just kind of have to follow the crevices. There is water coming out everywhere. I mean, water comes out in the golf course all the time. We have underground streams. The water table is actually pretty low right here. I mean, you can get to it's pretty high, I should say. Their source is coming through the green belt. But the higher up you get, if you get top, just keep going as far as you can drive and start looking. I mean, you get to the top of Banff, top of Bernina, top of Linden, there's no water, there's a tank, but top of Woodland, those would be your natural sources. And of course, if you can get it right before it comes out of the water is better. Stab a copper pipe in there, if you will, and then get it to come out of the ground. It's going to be cleaner, and you want to make sure it's running. I don't know if that's what you were asking. Okay. So the question is, why don't we have wells up higher? So if we had wells up higher, then we'd have to drill deeper and it would cost more money. So we drill by the foot, right? We pay by the foot. So we want to get the ones down here. Everything is settling down. So most of the wells are in the golf course area because this is the low area. So we're starting at, say, 5,000 elevation around here, and then we're pumping all the way up to the top of Lynn, which is at 6,700 in elevation, and then bringing it back down. So it's better to pump up and then let it gravity back down. It's just kind of the way it makes sense financially. Okay, if you had a tank at your house, a private tank, what would the water company recommend? Well, I wouldn't recommend having your own tank because that's could be a cross contaminant as far as I'm concerned. It makes me worry if it's tied into our supply, because then I have to worry about whether you're keeping up on your tank. If it's totally separate and it's not tied in to your house supply, which can't be tied into the water company's supply, I would say the easiest, most inexpensive, efficient would be a poly tank, a plastic tank. I know there had been some people in the past that had some copper gutters and then they were filling up a tank and they were going to use it for fire suppression, but it was totally disconnected and not connected to the water supply whatsoever. So as long as it's not connected to the water supply, I would go for the poly tank.
Of course, it depends on the size of the tank you are considering as well, but about 250 gallons of, they call them IBS totes, I think, the caged ones. They are high density polyethylene with metal reinforcement. This guy out there, he also sells them for about $100. So that's 250 gallons, but that's also a maintenance responsibility. Like, I don't know who can manage 250 gallons of water clean and usable for an extended time.
Well, for example, I think you're thinking more like a rancher's tank, like a 6,000 gallon tank. And the school has two of those that they've been using for quite some time. Now they have to have somebody go inside them and clean them because you don't want to take them offline. So they're kind of a maintenance nightmare. That's why I wouldn't suggest having anything that large. Yeah, and you'll see that right out here at Lockwood Valley. You know, a lot of people have that similar situation. They're obligated to have a tank just for fire, and then they have one for residential. But that's when there's limited supply on a general basis, but we have plenty of water on a general basis. And so I don't know if the necessity would be there for that fire suppression, but you know, that's up to you, that's up to the owner. I think having the smaller containers and just making sure you have it for your basic needs would be what I would do, but that's my opinion. I mean, Are we different? I mean, are we less vulnerable? No, we're still vulnerable for sure. There's plenty of water in the ground. There's plenty of water in the tanks. How long it's gonna last? Let's be honest. We're not gonna fight fires with the fire hydrants here. They're gonna be dropping air. I mean, when there's been a fire up top, wildfires, you know, the structural fire is one thing, but once it's gotten into wildfire, I mean, they never use the hydrants to combat wildfires around. I've never seen them do that. They go and they dip out of the pond, which we can pump water to the pond, and they do airstrikes. And so if we have a fire at that magnitude, like the Palisades, I don't know if that one fire station's gonna be able to hook up to enough hydrants to make a matter. I mean, what are they gonna get, one more unit over here? I don't think they're gonna be straining our water supply that much. You're not gonna get enough fire trucks up here in time. But I would say if we don't have the airstrikes and we don't have that, then we're looking at trying to get out of here as quickly as possible. I mean, it would take a lot for us to lose pressure because we got we have a lot of flow and we have high pressure in most of the areas because of where the water goes up to the top and comes back down. Most of you guys have high pressure issues, not low pressure issues. Maybe a few of you have some low pressure issues, but generally, yeah. So we've had leaks that can be anywhere from 1 gallon a minute to say 35 gallons a minute. We might not even feel it. You know, we're actually having to scrutinize it and do drop down tests and actually find those smaller leaks. Now, if we have the fire department pumping 500 gallons a minute off a tank, we're gonna feel it. If they're continuously pumping, it's gonna strain it pretty quick. I just don't see them doing it because they're gonna do structural fire. I don't think they're gonna try to fight a wildfire in between. And I would almost say that we're pretty much, this is a wildfire. I mean, all our houses are within the wild, right? So I'm hoping they're gonna be quick like they were in Fraser and we're gonna get airstrikes coming in. Again, if you choose to put a tank of that size on your property in Pine Mountain Club, just make sure it's not connected to the water company. I've seen maybe 1, 2 of those tanks around town. And the whole idea, a friend of mine had one at his house on Dogwood years ago, and he had all the rainwater coming from his house into this one tank, and he had his own pump and fire protection system that he was gonna pull out and use. Fortunately, he never had to use it. But just make sure it's separate so we don't have any contamination issues. I don't have a problem with you having that on your property, but how long is 6,000 gallons gonna last? If you're pumping, if you have something that can pump 250 gallons a minute, it's not gonna last very long either. Okay.
When is the evacuation event? July 25th. Yeah. Yeah, so if you're interested in being involved in that at all, or even just observing how we handle it, then please do come over to the CERT table after this and give us your contact data. Okay? Okay, good.
One of the challenges in those events is actually how to handle volunteers that show up. Right? So if you decide to show up and give us a surprise, you're welcome.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so the question was, is there a way to notify the community if there's an emergency or evacuation event? I'll let James talk a little bit about the radio safety net and stuff, and maybe the 1610 radio and the 1610 radio issue. But one of the things we're working on as a community is those communication channels. So it is going to be email, it's going to be the radio safety net, it's going to be all of the above. We do not have, as you pointed out, we don't have sirens that can be heard. And so until that gets set up, and there's some talk about that, but until that gets set up, don't count on that because they can't be heard. everywhere, and unless we train the community that when they hear a siren, it means evacuation, then we're not gonna use that necessarily. But one of the things that we're going to do at the CERT event is notify people, because we know that not everyone up here is dialed in with the emergency notification systems. They don't all have radio safety net. So what we're planning on doing is literally driving the neighborhoods and letting people know that there's an evacuation order. But for, you know, with audio horns and everything we can do. With that said, please sign up to Ready Kern. So just type in your search engine, Ready Kern, and they will give you text messages based on where you're located. Well, you tell them where your house is, and they will give you messages if that area needs evacuation. We also recommend the Genesis Protect app, which will do the same thing, and it will also give you a notice if you're in a location that is an evacuation zone. So it will use your location data and send you a message, an alert. And then when the county sends out evacuation messages, they tell you where to go, essentially. And our job at CERT is gonna be coordinating the communication with the POA, with those mass emails and maybe other 1610 radio, anything, to let people know which routes are open, which routes are closed and not available, because that is an inevitability. We've been in contact with the county, the people who do this kind of planning. They don't want to tell us exactly where they would tell us to go ahead of time, because it depends on the direction of the wind, it depends on everything. So it really is incumbent on all of us here to be prepared with getting that information, getting those apps and all that stuff signed up, and getting the radio safety net, and just having all those channels open so that we can reach you. And then James will talk about the other side of that.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Okay, so the question was ultimately about how do you get notified? I think the most important thing is Ready Kern. So that is the official source of information for evacuation notices, warnings, anything official coming from the county, which evacuation notices would come from the county. Those are all going to come through Ready Kern. Now, I also, being a communications kind of person, I believe very much in having multiple ways of receiving helpful, useful information, the information that matters. And so to that end, the PMCPOA does have an email distribution list, like Mark says, and also I believe they have a text notification, the ability to issue a mass text to residents now. But please, if somebody in the POA is here, if that's wrong, let me know. I think that is true. This AM 1610 radio station, you're right, that is offline. That transmitter is 40 years old, and it needs some work. But we are working on that, and the manufacturer is still in business, it turns out. So we're trying to get on top of that. But that can be a way to get information out to the community. The radio safety net can also be a way to do that. But ultimately, nothing is going to happen as far as these kinds of alerts go unless there's an official word from the fire department. So Ready Kern is I think the best solution to that.
So how do you get the
Yeah.
code? Oh, it's on
So-
the map.
Right.
So the note here was about the importance of knowing what evacuation zone you are residing in, or what zone you are in. PMC is divided into 5 individual zones. If you have questions about what zone you are in, that is where the Genesis Protect app that Mark mentioned can come in handy. That can tell you which zone specifically your house is located in. If you have any questions or would like to know what zone you're in, come find one of the CERT folks. We can help you identify what zone you are in. These zones are, it is like BJ said, it is really helpful if you just know what zone you are you are living in. I wish we had them attached to all the street signs here, but we don't right now. But yes, you're absolutely right that when an evacuation warning comes, it is very likely that they will say this zone identified by KRN dash something something something. That zone will be issued an evacuation warning or order. So know your zones.
Yes. Right. Yeah, and yeah. It's yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. 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 Well, thank you for that. For people who are streaming who didn't hear that. Yeah, for people who are watching this streaming didn't hear that, basically, the attendee was talking about how vitally important what we're doing here is, and how basically how much and how likely it is that when something big happens, we are going to be on our own. And each one of us individually, to a very certain degree, and our family is going to be on its own. And to the degree you're prepared, you won't be a victim. You won't become one more part of the problem, but will actually be able to help, even if you're just taking care of your own family. So it's super, super critical and important. Good. Another question. Yeah. Can't hear you. Okay. Okay, so the question was, is the water company are the staff all 24/7, and how many are here in PMC at any given time?
Yeah, so normal operation, 7:30, 4:30, we're generally here Monday through Friday. We have 24-hour SCADA system that monitors the system, that's checking for any anomalies. So if we have something sudden happen, we have communication failures, if we have any kind of power failures, if we have water loss that's high that we notice, we'll get an alarm, and that alarm goes out to someone who's on call 24/7. So we always have someone on call 24/7 that's available to come in at any given time. And that person has a backup that has to be in town as well. And so, and then of course, we're all ready to respond if need be. Out of the 9 of us, 7 live in town. A few of them are on the east side of town and a few of them are on the side of town. So we're spread around. 2 of us actually, I live in Pinyon Pines full time, and one of the office staff lives out in Lockwood Valley, but everyone else is in Pine Mountain for the most part. So, and I'm always here, it seems like. So it's just, my kids go to school over here. I come over here on the weekend. I'm back over here at the pool. I mean, I'm always around, it seems like. So I'm pretty much always on call. And there is somebody working right now. 7 days a week we have somebody working, and they're keeping an eye on the system. So, yep.
Good. Another question. Any more questions? Yeah. Is there a regulation for roof watering systems for fire suppression? Who would know the answer to that? Anybody? No? Sorry, Arlen, I couldn't hear the last thing you said. If he what? Yeah. Right. Right. Okay. So,
Yeah, yeah, so is there regulations currently with having some kind of roof suppression system? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it's something we should look into if everyone's gonna be doing it. I have seen a few of them around town, and I've never really seen them go off. If you have a sprinkler system, per se, going off at your house, it shouldn't affect your neighbor's house. So if it's similar, just a bunch of sprinkler heads going, it's not going to affect you the way you think it's going to. Now, if everybody in town has one going off at the same time, we may have some problems. Yeah, and we may get into some regulations at that. As far as I know, you can do what you want with your property. We all want to be able to do what we want with our property. Conserving water during a time of need, though, would be my concern. Is if we are in an emergency situation, please let the firefighters fight the fire. Don't fight the fire yourself. Don't hook up to the hydrants. You're not authorized to do so. During the day fire, there was a situation where the current general manager got into it with a few homeowners and was cutting some of their hoses with axes. And so, hopefully it doesn't get volatile. We live in a small community because we want to help each other out, right? So I'm not going to get upset if my neighbor's trying to fight a fire unless it's impeding on what's happening somewhere else. And so weigh those out. Hopefully everyone's somewhat reasonable. I know in an emergency situation, it's not always that case, but the reason I live here, when I say here, the Mountain, Pinyon, Pine Mountain Club, Fraser, Lake of the Woods, the whole area is because we are a community that cares about each other. And so if I see somebody in need, I'm going to help them. So I'm hoping that we're all going to help each other out during the time of need. And I think that's part of the reason we're here. So I wouldn't get too upset about the neighbor having that suppression system. But again, it could be something we'll have to look at if everybody starts installing them. I think the key would be hardening your house, not trying to waste water. So, I would have spent the money to harden my house, not put in that sprinkler system if it was me. And those would be the key things that I would be looking at doing to protect my home. But yeah, there's no regulations that I'm aware of, unless Joe knows of anything. Since he stepped in, I'll put him on the spot for a second. Is there any regulations with people from the POA for putting fire suppression systems on the outside of their houses, like sprinkler heads? You guys have? No. Outdoor systems? Really? So that's something I'm gonna have to look into. Thanks for bringing that up. That's definitely something, thanks, Joe. One more thing to look at.
Yeah, but why don't you just come up and say a few words?
Yes, hi everybody. Just wanted to plug the July 11th wildfire event. So we're gonna have something similar on July 11th, but it's pertaining to wildfires. I know there's a lot of crossover between what we're talking about now, so please come to that event as well.
Good. Well, I think this is actually a good point to end off your questions. Why don't you get with the table? Have you got like one more that you want to do? Otherwise, well, okay, go for it. Very good question. How are we different than Paradise, the town that burned to a cinder?
Again, I'm not an expert, just a neighbor. Like there's multiple differences. I think for one thing, we have a bigger gathering area. As far as I know, this is from the documentary watching, they all gathered at the McDonald's parking lot. We have a bigger gathering area that is free of vegetation. That's a positive thing, I think. There is, in terms of access, I'm not sure. There's 2 ways in and out of here, right? But Paradise also did that, so that's not a difference then, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, go ahead. Right. Right. Just to repeat for the listeners, like so the power company is clearing interactions with the power lines and the trees. The power company seems to be taking some precautions. Yeah, I mean, this isn't to relieve everybody and say, "Oh, we're different." No, we're not saying that. Yeah, we are aware of very much the risk. Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. Like in terms of our awareness and response, a sense of responsibility and preparedness is also a significant difference, I think. I mean, I can't speak for what they did, but I really, like I said before, I really feel privileged to be living in a place that has a dedicated radio system, a dedicated emergency preparedness committee, which a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of towns don't have, and also a CERT team that is active. Like we are very, like we encourage everyone to take responsibility for like prepare and also help others as well. So that's going to create the biggest difference, I think, and we'll see.
Yeah, we hope we don't see. Right. Right. Good. Well, listen, I want to thank our speakers so very much. I appreciate all the work in putting us on. Yeah. I also want to thank our CERT team volunteers that really put in a bunch of time to create this event and put it on, and come on a Sunday, take up most of the day on a Sunday to help the community get more. Okay, great, thanks. Get more aware of just how to be prepared and how important it is to be prepared. So we're going to do a raffle here next, but before I jump into that, I just want to say that we do have these tables. Any further questions, if you want to sign up, if you want to just let us know, you know, your names and contact data so that we can have you on a list so that when a disaster happens, we can reach you if you are interested at all, possibly in helping. The other thing I would strongly suggest is that we've mentioned him a few times, but Abel, and I've forgotten his last name, but Abel drove up from Santa Clarita with a big truckload of big drums and different types of water containers. He has them for sale. He's got a whole demonstration display set up out there near the, near the gazebo. And so please, after this, go talk to him, go see what he has. Even if you can't buy something today, if you want, you can order something and he'll deliver it and bring it up, at a different time. But really good to see what he actually has available. Good. So let's do our raffle. So Nico, will you come up here, please? We have 12 different prizes that are disaster. All but 2 of them are actually disaster supplies things, and really valuable little supplies. So we're going to pick 12 of these. I don't have many more than 12 tickets, actually. But can you just pick one? Okay, great. Both numbers? What? Okay. No, I don't quite understand this. There's 2 numbers on here. Oh, everyone has 2 tickets. Okay, great. All right. So here's the first number. 229477, 229478. Hello, hello. Somebody must have that. Yeah, Arlen. Yay. So Arlen, go over to the table and pick one of those prizes. Okay, next one. Great, thanks. Okay, 229454 and 453. You got it? 229454 and 453. Really? They must have left. Okay, let's stick that one there. Let's get another one. Thank you. Okay, 229456 and 229455. 229455 and 56. No? What the heck, guys? Did you make these up, Patty? Okay, next one. Thank you very much. Great. All right, so 229487 and 88. 88. 229488. No? This is really interesting. Okay. I wonder if we've got the right numbers written down. All right, pick me another one. Next time you can pick one, okay? Okay, great. Thanks, Nico. Okay, guys, let's see. Here's the next one. 229460 or 229459. What happened to this? Hey, guys, is everybody looking at your tickets? Yeah. Did you get this? Okay. All right. Strange. Okay, one more. Thank you. Okay, this is going to be the special one, I can tell. 229446 and 445. Actually, we just made this up. We didn't want anybody to get the prizes because we wanted them, right? So really, I'll give you that number again. 229445 and 446. No? Julia, what's going on here? All right, we're going to do this a different way. Thank you, Nico. But I don't see the numbers. Okay, here's one. 97, God, I can't read it. 97198. No, sorry, 97194. No? Good Lord. How many people have tickets? Raise your hands. This is crazy, people. Okay. How funny. All right, how fast can you run up to the table? First ones to get there get the prizes. All right, so let's see. Here's one. Okay, 2131594. How about 1574? Okay, I'm just going to start counting. Does anybody have number 1? Number 2? Number 3? Yes, 9474. Oh my God, Jean, okay, yoo-hoo! I'm starting to feel really foolish. Okay, good. Here's another one. So I think they all start with the 22, right? Anyway, 93194. 93194. Hello, hello, 93194. No. Oh my God. Here's another one. 5694528. God, I hope that's right. Yeah. 5694528. Patty. Okay.
The last ticket that was given out is 514.
Okay, so that's
So
not
these-
working. Okay. All right, we're just going to keep going. We're going to make this happen. 229464. 464. Going once, going twice. 463. What? This is beyond belief. What was that? No, no, that's why this doesn't make any sense. And I'm sitting here red-faced. We do. We have to have a win on this. We've got to get 12. Okay. Okay, here's the next one. 229475. Oh my God, hallelujah! Hallelujah. Okay, great. All right, we're on a roll. 229452. 452 or 451? No? Oh God. This is so bizarre, I can't believe it. Okay, next one. 229467 or 468. Hello? Yay, another one, woo! Okay. All right, here's the next one. We need one from you guys, from this table over here. Yeah. The 229485 or 486. Did you get that? 229485. Yes? Woo-hoo! Okay, we're on a roll now. Okay. 229473. It's close. 474. 229473 or 74. You got it? Okay, why don't you give it to somebody else? Give it to your neighbor. If you've got the ticket. Okay, good. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. Good Lord. Here we go. Next number, 229471. Woohoo! We got one for the table. Yay! That was very good intention, man. You were going to get one of those. Okay, here we go. Next one. 229469. 469. Yoo-hoo, go. All right. 229484. 229484. Hello, hello? No? Okay. We need another one from this table. 229491. You got it? Yay. Okay, good. We're going to use up all the tickets here. Next one, 229466. Your table, you guys need one. 229466 or 465. Hello, hello? Anybody? No? All right. 229462. 229462. Hello? This is just so weird, I can't believe it. 229458. 229458. Hello? Nope. 229450 or 449. Anybody? I'm going to repeat that. 229449 or 450. No? Okay. 229448 or 447. Hello? Nope. Oh my God. I have 3 tickets left. Here we go. All right. 229489. Yay! Hallelujah! My gosh! All right. Second to the last one. 229481. Woohoo! Okay, for the table. All right. How are we doing? How many do we have left? We have 2 left, and I have 1 ticket. Oh no, she's going to take one. Okay. Please, Lord. Please, Lord. All right, 229479 or 480. Yay! Okay, good. That was hard work. How weird. I am so sorry. Sorry. That was... Okay, we have some left. These people over here, because their numbers weren't even called out, ever. They weren't on it. So, right here. These guys. What is that? It didn't. God, I am so sorry, guys. This got confused and it didn't get handled correctly. So, are we done? Those are the last of the... Do you know what we should do? You know, Julia, here's what we should do. Everybody who didn't get anything should get one of those bags. We've got a whole bunch of them, or one of the, or the no, I mean the document containers. Okay, if your number didn't get called when you leave, ask Julia that we have some plastic containers that are for documents in a, keeping all your documents safe. Okay? Thank you, everybody, for coming, and we'll see you at the next event. Bye.